Welcome to the Innovators and Investors podcast. I'm Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. At Finstrat, we provide CFO-led accounting, finance, and reporting services to assist clients monetize their business. Stick around to the end of the podcast, and I'll share how you can be our next guest. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Innovators and Investors podcast. I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. Really excited because with us today we have Erin Niehaus, partner with DigitalDx Ventures. Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kristian. Happy to be here.
Hey, so before we get into your background and experience, why don't we just start with DigitalDx? We'd love to know the firm's focus and how you guys are having an impact in the market.
Sure. So DigitalDx is a pre-seed seed investor. We focus on the intersection of AI and healthcare. And our main focus for an investment perspective is early non-invasive detection of large-scale diseases, cancers, infectious diseases, and cognitive diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS.
Wow. Okay. And your role as a partner, what's your focus?
So I am helping, Michelle Colucci is one of the founding partners. I'm brought in to help her scale. We are raising fund 2, so I'm helping with fundraising. I'm helping with a lot of the analysis within our portfolio companies to figure out how AI is impacting their workflows and the ROI around that, and then working with some of the managements on that. And then getting us out in the market and letting people know what we do.
Fantastic. So I'd love to hear on that. Love to hear your journey and how you ended up as a partner at DigitalDx.
Yeah, so I have a fairly circuitous career. I've done a lot of different things. I started as an institutional money manager for a big pension fund management house focused on tech back in the 90s when it was really fun and scaling. And so I kind of cut my teeth on the institutional investing side and went from there to run a high-tech hedge fund for a while. Back again in the 90s, 2000s, when tech was really exploding. So learned a lot about how to dig deep into the stories that are driving markets. And then I personally had 4 children in 3 years and got very sick. And so had to kind of get myself back to health. And when I got back, I went into the private wealth management world. And it sort of informs how I got to DigitalDx, which is that I view prevention as a big helper for people in the market. So I helped people with their money. So as you probably know from a lot of the companies that you work with, having the right corporate structure, having the right titling of assets, having the right investment portfolio, all those things help prevent a lot of problems down the line. And then life happens. And my personal journey to DigitalDx was through leaving JP Morgan's private bank recently. And Michelle called me and asked if I would come help, partly because I have a very good background in researching companies and technologies, but also because of we had had a conversation that when my mom was dying of cancer, about how possible it was to change the course of care through early detection. And that really resonated with me. I don't think you can walk into a room now and swing a rope and not hit somebody whose family has been impacted by a cancer or Alzheimer's or some other chronic disease. And I got to a phase of my career where it really was personally meaningful to me to be able to take my desire for prevention with my desire to make some money for people and put those together. So that's how I ended up at DigitalDx.
Fantastic. I mean, without question, I mean, now it's prevention's better than a pound of cure. A bit unique as far as guests go. So it sounds like you have firsthand experience with the .com boom. Obviously, a lot of hype that was in there. I can remember some companies that were trading at ungodly multiples, and I think they might have been pre-revenue. That said, AI arguably maybe nearing the initial peak of the hype cycle. I'd love to get your perspective. I mean, when you think of those two instances in time, how do you see a lot of similarities?
So my mantra right now is what's old is new. And I think that we are sort of coming back around. We're post free money in the markets. We're back to a point where interest rates matter. We're back to a point where revenue matters. Operating margin expansion matters. We're not getting crazy multiples. We've had, back at JP Morgan, I was banking a lot of the venture capital funds. and then their principles. And we described 22, 3, 4 as nuclear winter. Like there was just not a lot of activity. So right now, I think AI is a catalyzing force, much like the dot-com boom was. And part of what I find very interesting about AI is I just look at it as a productivity tool. And part of the reason why I joined DigitalDx Ventures, honestly, is because if you're looking at the productivity gains that can be gained from AI across different verticals, healthcare is one of those where I feel like it's just absolutely exploding. And again, in the dot-com world, we had to figure out which applications were going to be the ones that were really going to scale. And right now in AI, we're in that process of figuring that out. Obviously, LLMs and machine learning and everything are helping a lot of the productivity on the office space and sometimes the enterprise space. Data capture, data transcription, and then giving you back modest amounts of analytics around that. Part of what I see happening, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be a bust, but I do feel like there's going to be a much more verticalized focus on where AI helps the productivity the most. And I don't feel as though right now the market, so yes, we have the outliers of the open AIs and all the different Anthropics and all those other people that are in the market that are getting these crazy valuations, but that's a very small piece of the market cap of money going into these things. And it's crazy because it's such an enabling technology. It's kind of like what's happening with NVIDIA and semis, right? It is so enabling as an underlying technology. You might remember that there was waves of evaluations of kind of craziness within the dot-com boom, right? We started with sort of the direct-to-consumer, like the Netscapes, the browsers kind of things. Then we moved into the networking layer, right? And then we moved into the social layer. I think AI will evolve a lot like that. And I think we're in the first phase where these big LLMs are getting most of the airspace because the productivity is so tangible right now, the gains. I see it happening a little differently. And here at Digital DX, we see it a little differently. Like our thesis, our investment thesis is that the human body is a big data problem. And right now, the LLMs have a very clear logic strain that, it runs linearly in these large language models a lot of the time. The human body doesn't give you as predictive an outcome. Like everybody's cells are different, everybody's exosomes and proteins are different. So I use the analogy a lot. There's a movie called The Imitation Game that Benedict Cumberbatch was in. I don't know if you remember that, but they're code breaking in World War II and they move a knob and then lots of different things on the screen change and it's random, right? And they're trying to break the code. We view AI as the enabler to be able to do that with the human body, which is different than what's going on with some of these just large language AI models right now. And again, part of what I'm doing for Digital DX is helping our companies understand within their workflows where the investors care about the ROI and the IRR for their actual work and have real tangible examples for where that comes in. So I don't see it being as boom bust as AI because I don't feel like we have as many liquid companies to invest in, right? There's certain, AI's upping valuations a lot like the dot-com stuff did too. But I do think we sort of learned our lesson on that a little bit and it rhymes, but I don't think we're going to see the same sort of absolute bubble pop because I still think we're really early.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, I think, part of the key to the dot-com bubble was that these were all trading on public exchanges, where a lot of the activity that's taking place right now is private. And it makes perfect sense why people should be looking at, or investors should be looking at companies like Digital DX. Love to unpack the thesis. You said a whole host of great things, right? We can turn this into a long conversation. So one of the things I heard you mention is that your investors are looking for ROI. What are some of the themes that you're bullish on right now?
Themes that we're bullish on. I think we are most bullish on science right now. And I think part of what happens, and I say that sort of generically, but themes in terms of biomarker and protein identification within very early stages and new ways to analyze those. So without getting too far into the weeds on the science, there are new ways to look at the structures within cells and analyze those. There are new ways to take the pathogen, the things that are coming off our body, and this is what we do because we're very focused on non-invasive. So the themes that we are most excited in are non-invasive and new discovery platforms. So I'll give you an example. We have one of our portfolio companies, his name is Biosha. You may recall during COVID in New York City, they were testing the sewer water to see if COVID was in the water, and people were using that test to see if COVID was still spreading. So that came out of Weill Cornell's lab, an amazing scientist from there, and they commercialized it into what's now called GeoSeek, which is a global pandemic dashboard that 200 countries like in the world are using to track over 4,000 pathogens. So again, what we're excited about is the ability to take new ways of finding data, structuring that data, and then creating a platform where we can test a lot of different non-invasive things like saliva, like blood, like urine, like sewer water. Not particularly pretty, but these are the things that the body produces that we don't have to pick and prod. Like I use the example in terms of ROI, right? My mom had lung cancer. Okay, she calls me and says, my lung might collapse because I have to put a needle in it. If you get a call from the hospital, don't be alarmed. Oh, okay. But that's how you do a lung biopsy. We have a company coming out of Oxford Cancer Analytics, that can do a blood test and do a liquid biopsy with blood. So you don't have to go into the hospital and be admitted. You don't have to collapse your lung. And the ROI and on that kind of a thing saves you the time, the hospital stay, the doctor's time, the anesthesiologist's time, all the infection risk, and all the collateral things that could happen in a hospital. And so I'm getting around to quantifying all of those different things. So that's what that's our theme that we're really excited about.
So, as I'm listening to this, I can't help but think of a handful of headwinds. Two in particular. One, my experience has been that healthcare is a generally a conservative industry, and for good reason. Would love to know, how you think about that and how you factor that into your return time. And then two, it's interesting you were saying earlier, thinking about the human body it's unique. A lot of obviously physiologically we're the same, but individually, a whole host, I'm sure, if not hundreds, thousands, millions of nuanced differences. How much of that is like just data limitations, meaning we just don't have enough data to have enough profiles, or does it not matter just because every single person is different? We just really need to have the IA designed in a way that can accommodate the fact that we have 7 billion unique plus use cases in the world.
Yeah. No, good questions. And so the first answer for your headwinds question is that, healthcare is conservative. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I think we all realize there's a couple of things that make me super bullish on this market, which there's always going to be headwinds, right? But the thing that makes me super bullish on this is one, it's kind of counterintuitive, but COVID really changed the way people think about advocating for their health and testing themselves at home. And the second thing that I think so there's that, there's obviously the whole Make America Healthy Again, and we can discuss how people feel about that. But within the public conscience, people are thinking, how do I take more agency for my health? Longevity is a big deal. So arming people with the data, to your point about how do you get over these headwinds, some of it will have to be pulled through by the public. And a lot of it is also coming from the healthcare providers themselves. If they have better data earlier in the health cycle of someone, they can save a ton of money and a ton of time. So our hope is to get our goal is to get the data-driven insights into the hands of the physicians earlier. And the physicians are dying for help, right? All these digital health companies that are using AI for their health records and for the dictation and the note taking and all those things that are improving the productivity of the doctors and the nurses in the front line. If they have better data early, that mitigates one of those headwinds because the cost savings for these health centers is staggering when you start to take it earlier. And that's a lot of what we do, the kind of stuff that we're working on. Our big theme really, the other theme that you asked about is personalized medicine, right? The ability to know, because we're all so different, and this kind of goes to your second question. Personalized medicine is one of those things where it's a knowable fact. AI is one of the tools that will unleash that pattern matching for amounts of data sets. And we see it all the time in our companies. So many of them have to have thousands of samples to benchmark against. And their AI is the perfect tool to start the pattern matching around that, to take that to a more personalized level. Because as you know, different ethnicities, different gender, what everybody manifests a little bit differently. And AI is the perfect application on top of that to pattern match much more quickly. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is hard, but you know what's interesting about the headwinds and healthcare being conservative? We meet with all the leaders in healthcare. Like we're with Mayo, we're with Johns Hopkins, like all the different people leading the charge. And we actually just did something, the Five Lakes, which is in the Five Lakes region, for all the universities. We talked to them and their innovation centers. We're working with Vanderbilt, we're working with Tulane, we're working with a lot of different universities, because all of these people are looking for a way to get the information accurately sooner. And they want to take that. And AI, again, is like the accelerant on that.
And so well, that totally makes perfect sense. And, for the members of our audience who perhaps not as dialed in to the healthcare industry, back with Obamacare, part of the logic behind it was a transition from fee for service for pay for performance. So the train has left the station a long time ago, but I think your point about COVID is great. I mean, the fact that people were sequestered at home and had to, answer questions for themselves. I agree. I also see a landscape shift as props, hastening along this idea of, hey, we need to reduce costs. If you look at the federal budget, I think CMS is a quarter of it. Whether or not it stays that way, given, as we're recording this right now, it's mid-February and Doge is hard at work. We'll see, but I think the overall theme is there and it's playing really well into DigitalDx's thesis. So obviously you have a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience. You sound super confident on the investment outlook, love it. That said, I heard pre-seed and seed. What's the extent that the firm will get involved with assisting founders?
We do that for sure. We have a couple repeat founders on our board. We do that because we want to own 10% at exit. And so we really believe, and we see so many amazing ideas coming out of labs. Part of what I think makes DigitalDx a little bit unique is, one, we run really lean. There's only a couple partners and we don't make a lot. We're here right now, we're out raising fund too. But the thing that we have that I think is super unique is twofold. And we have about 25 experts in residence who have had great careers and really just believe in our thesis. So they help us source deals and then diligence deals. So for example, the former chief scientist at Myriad Genetics. One of our partners is David Kirk, who was the former chief scientist at NVIDIA. So we have deep expertise in both AI and in healthcare, and regulatory as well. We have some policymakers on the board, on our boards and in our EIR. And the other thing we have, because it's part of our ethos, is the pay it forward, because healthcare is going to have to, all these innovations are going to have to continue, right? So we run a free fellowship for MDs, PhDs, MBAs that are in business in their particular places. And they come and they want to learn about investing. So we now have 225-ish alums from that fellowship. And all of this feeds into our deal flow and the seed, pre-seed part, which is what you asked about. So we find companies really early and ideate and really help them build. So I mentioned earlier that my theme is what's old is new. I do feel like venture got a little over its skis and moved into more of a growth investing. And part of that is because so much liquidity came out of the public markets and the private markets have taken the place of that. And also because interest rates have grown, so the private equity markets have ballooned. And so right now there's this interesting, I feel like we're back to the roots of venture capital where we're really building companies. We're putting board members on. We're creating management teams. We're helping getting them through FDA approval and the patent IP process. We're really doing that like old school. It's what I think about it, more old school VC work. One other thing I have to mention for Digital DX that is very important to us is that we do have a woman on every board of every company that we have, just because we do believe in the ability to have different points of view, and our boards reflect the population that we're serving in the healthcare space. So as demographics change, we have to bring that into bear for the leadership of these companies, and that's super important for us.
I think that's brilliant. And a whole bunch to unpack there too. On the side,
I do that. I do that a lot.
case in point, one of the thoughts you just gave me is, having a conversation with my wife, and she was sharing with me that, historically, it seems that as women went into menopause, that the science stopped. It's like, oh, you're not having kids anymore. We're going to put you out to pasture. My wife and I are very active, and care about, staying healthy as long as possible, spend time with our, hopefully, grandkids. Are like, no, well, wait a second. It's like you have an entire segment of your population who absolutely still matters. So that's great, that you can bring additional perspectives from, half the population, to your
Well,
portfolio.
and it's good business too. I mean, I am not a tokenist by any stretch of the imagination, but there are certain things that women go through, like childbirth, that it's just hard for a man to understand, and that's not a good thing, or like it just is. Like
That's
I
right.
would have no idea of what ED feels like, right? So I think we have to look at health as obviously very personal, and so and appreciate where people are coming from. And again, part of why I'm on this journey with Digital DX is because it is so personal, and we'd all like to protect our health. We all would like to know if there's something brewing inside of us that, could I get a test from my OBGYN for a cancer screen, which is something they do now in California? Yeah, we have the technology now. And our whole thesis is that these are knowable things. One of our companies does a urine test to determine if you're going to reject a kidney from transplant. Wouldn't that be great to know ahead of time? Like, why spend all this time and money if you're not going to be able to accept the kidney and have host graft and all these other issues?
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm no physician, but
Me neither. That's the whole
you know,
thing.
exactly. I mean, you just think about the biology of men and women alone, and the hormones that have an impact on treatment. And I mean, it's just, oh my gosh, so brilliant. I love it.
I
I,
think ultimately what I was going to say, the only other thing I'd say, like to your audience, and I am a layperson when it comes to the science, right? So I'm more of a tech person and much more of a finance person. So I bring the business and the technology side to it. So the AI side, I'm very conversant in. On the science side, this is partly why we have the 25 experts. But I will tell you, the people I have met in the people that are in those labs today that are doing the work are so amazing around the world, because we have fellows and companies from all over the world. And I think, like, partly for your viewers who are all about innovation, you think about who gets up every day and is like, what if? What if I could solve this problem? Why is it that I can take a cheek swab or a nose swab and figure out if I have COVID, but I can't figure out if I have strep, right? Seems silly. Like, why should I have to go to the doctor when I feel crappy to be able to get, like we're working with a company right now to do that for strep, for Lyme, for a lot of these really big diseases that affect everybody's lives every day. Like, imagine if you could know that early for $30 in your house.
100%. I mean, back to your earlier comment about the venture capital market getting back to focusing on pre-seed, seed. I mean, I think for this reason, there's so much innovation taking place out there that needs capital. If we have more funds like yours who can make sure that you're focused on it, except for, in lieu of maybe the next great growth story, which obviously is great, source of job growth and just economic prosperity. But I couldn't agree more. I do think maybe because the interest rates aren't going up anymore, we're starting to see a little bit more clarity in what the next 4 years are going to look like. That yes, we can get back to roots.
Yeah,
Something
sitting
else
here
that
in February, I'm a little chilled by the NIH freeze at the moment, but we'll hope
um,
it pause.
it's always one thing. I,
It's always something.
yes. Um,
But
so
the markets are great about going around that though. They just need capital.
yeah, that's it. And depending on, I'm sure we can people who can make arguments on either end, but what a great opportunity for capital markets to step in and get rewarded for taking the risk. Um,
Yeah.
and so would love to, I heard you mention that you have repeat founders, and then my thoughts immediately go to the fellowship. As you guys are as you're doing due diligence, how important is it that this is their second, third rodeo, or that they've been practicing in their field for a certain amount of time?
Um, it sort of depends, but it's not a fatal flaw if not. It's always helpful, right? Because life is cumulative and our experience sets are cumulative. So to the extent that someone's got battle scars, you know that they won't make those kind of mistakes again. And they have perspective. So that's super helpful. But again, because so many of the best and brightest have not come, part of why we do this is to create the opportunity for people who haven't grown up in these worlds. And part of our structure internally is to be able to give the first time founders the support that they need across the different key parts of their journey to build a company, which includes everything from the IP to the due diligence. And that's why we have so many experts in different, like in neurology, ophthalmology. We have a company that does an eye scan for Alzheimer's 10 years before you see it. So we have, someone who's got an ophthalmology expertise. So if you're a first-time founder and you're listening to this and saying, oh, I don't know if I can ever get a start, um, it's really important to find the right partners that are going to scaffold your journey and really amplify your strengths, because we all know that founders are wired a little differently, right? They're willing to take risks that others aren't because they believe so passionately in about what they're doing. But sometimes they really do need that underpinning of like running a real business. And that's where we come in and we give them the scientific backing from our EIRs and our fellows. We'll give them the regulatory guidance, because that's a really important, if you can't get reimbursement approval, you're dead in the water. So we try and look at it from a business perspective and then building that founder up. Repeat founders have been through that rodeo, so it usually just compresses the time frame a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, I think also when you have adults in the room who've done it before on our bench, we solve it really quickly. And I think the other thing that's kind of important to mention is that we eat our cooking in the AI side. So we have internally created a proprietary AI screening model for diligence. So, I mean, we probably see 100 companies a month-ish. How do you whittle that down to the 4 that you're going to diligence, right? So we have a quantitative screening that we use, which is an AI-enabled tool, so that all of our companies hit the same 72 data points that we look for to differentiate. So for founders, repeat or new, know that there's a method to the madness that people look at. And yes, pattern matching in VC is a thing for sure. Like everyone wanted to be the next Amazon forever. Um, you do have to, and this kind of goes to your headwind too, like you have to tell people your story in a way that's going to rhyme so that they can associate with it, and then use the tools to differentiate yourself as you go forward.
Um, all great points, and especially for the founders in the audience. This has been a theme on the podcast before. This concept of risk mitigation. I kind of feel like we're at the point now where people realize that VCs have clients of their own. Your limited partners, and that you have to be very thoughtful when you deploy capital. And so, yeah, I mean, 100%. If for any founders who are listening, I really encourage you to put yourself in the shoes of the people you're talking to when looking for investment dollars. Erin, it's been an awesome podcast. Before we wrap up, question I love to ask: if you had the opportunity to go back to your younger self at the beginning of your career, what would you say?
Um, Become technically competent in whatever you're passionate about, and don't let anyone tell you you can't do something.
I freaking love it. That's great. I think it's absolutely sage advice. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember one of my old bosses has had a little placard on his desk, and it said something to the effect of, what would you do if you knew you were going to succeed? And to your point, I think it's just a great mentality.
Well,
Awesome.
and be kind. Please be kind and generous. Um, you know, because I think you probably had this in your life where you look back on those people that really paid it forward to you, and it just made such a difference to know that someone believed in you. So obviously that comes from internal belief. You have to believe in yourself first, but be generous because the generosity is what's going to really, and that's just helping with an intro, right? Or it's, listening to someone's idea and giving some feedback or whatever it is that you can do to be generous. I think is also probably what I would tell my younger self. I'm predetermined, like I'm pre-wired to be that way, but not everybody is.
Agreed. And hey, we have to be the change we want to see in the world. I
Yeah.
love it. Erin, if there are any potential employees who would like to join DigitalDx, founders who'd like to get in front of you, or limited partners who are interested in learning more about the new fund, how can they find you?
Erin at DigitalDx.com. We're DigitalDx Ventures, and yeah, Erin at DigitalDx.com.
Excellent.
Cool.
Another episode of the Innovators and Investors podcast. Erin Niehaus, partner at DigitalDx Ventures. Again, I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. Erin, thank you.
Thanks, Kristian. That was fun.
Thank you so much for listening to the Innovators and Investors podcast. If you are a successful founder or an investor who would like to be on the podcast, please visit podcast.finstratmgmt.com. If you know someone that would be a great guest, please tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Innovators and Investors. I'd love to see your posts and suggestions. We're regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you catch each new episode, please subscribe to the Innovators and Investors podcast. And your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and it means a lot to me and my team. Would you like to know more? Go to our website, finstratmgmt.com, or follow us on LinkedIn or on X. Our handle is @finstratmgmt. This is Kristian Marquez. Thank you for listening. Until next time.